Welcome to Salsido Paranormal. I'm your host, James Salsido, and tonight I'm continuing my review of the Twilight Zone TV series, the original. As always, you can find all episodes of my show, along with links to social media and ways to support the show, at my website, which is salsidoparanormal.com. That's SALSIDO paranormal.com. Also, in every episode description, you can find links to the Troubled Minds Radio Network, KUAP Digital Broadcasting, where you can listen to great shows throughout the day from a lot of great people, great friends, and you can hear 2 episodes of my show every night at 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern, right before Troubled Minds Radio comes on. And so we are continuing our review of The Twilight Zone. I just did some checking into sort of where we're at in the larger scheme of this review, and I've reviewed 55 episodes so far total, and there are 156 total in the series. So we're just over like a third of the way done with this review. So we're going to be doing this for a while longer, and I hope that's okay with everyone because I do enjoy it, and there's so many. As I said, the last episode, the last one of these review episodes, there's so many things that are connections between this fictional TV series and things that people have reported experiencing and other experiences people have reported seeing and finding evidence of. So that's why we do this, to find those connections and yeah. So let me get back to the documents I use here for these shows. We are on episode 20 of season 2, and this episode is called Static. And there's this it starts off with a house, and there's a let me see here. There's a bachelor in his late 50s living in a boarding house. His name is Ed. He finds that he doesn't care for what's on the TV that is in the house that everybody can watch by the other residents. And he goes looking around in the basement of the house and finds an old radio. And he starts thinking about how he used to love listening to the radio. And it used to be relaxing and a lot more entertaining to him than any TV in his current time, which is the 60s, around that time. So he brings it up to his room, and he turns it on, and it starts playing, receiving radio stations, music and programs from the 1930s and 40s. So he tells everyone else about what he's hearing, and they figure that whatever he's hearing, they're all recordings that other radio stations in the present are just playing. And so when they try to find these stations that are playing this older music on modern radios, on current radios of their time, they can't find any of what he is hearing. So they and when they go to his room to hear what he's been hearing on his radio, on the radio he found, all he gets is static. It won't play anything for them. And when Ed tries to contact the radio station that he hears playing on this radio when no one else is around, he finds it's been out of business for years. And so at this point, he talks to one of the owners of the house, Vinny Brown. I'm not sure if that's how you say the last name. And they don't get along super well. They actually drifted apart over the years, even though they had intended to get married when they had first met. But other things happened until too much time had passed. And she tells him that the past can't be recovered and he should let it go. And talking in general, but also in regard to the radio. And hinting and eventually saying that she thinks he's having a delusion, some kind of audio hallucination. And Ed doesn't want to hear it because to him, he's really hearing what he's hearing. And he tells Vinny, the owner of the house, to get out of his room. And he still continues to work with this radio to try to get to play more and more. So at this point, everyone, including Vinny and other residents, they're worried about Ed, and they think he's maybe going crazy. So they have the radio taken away by a shopkeeper. And Ed finds this and rushes outside and catches this shopkeeper and buys it back for $10 and brings it back to his room and turns it on and finds that it still is working. And so he starts listening to it again, and he calls Vinny back to his room, and he basically, at this moment in the show, time somehow is reversed, and Ed and Vinny get back together again because they both hear the song on this radio, and they actually somehow change time and do get together and become a couple by the end of the show. So you have this really weird mix of signals from another time, and then somehow time through maybe intent and through just thinking and thought and all those things, somehow that allowed these two people to travel back to earlier versions of themselves, along with this radio in the middle of all of that, to start over again. So it's a really neat episode. And I've heard on rare occasions people have reported hearing music or the radio is doing weird things. That's a whole topic for a whole series of shows. I think we've done shows on electronics acting in weird ways. I don't know that I've ever heard any accounts of anyone finding radio stations from the past necessarily, but I don't see why it isn't possible if other anomalous things can happen with radios and even other devices, just computers and things like that, but especially radios, because I have heard, like I said, of radios turning on or off on their own, apparently. And then, of course, the idea is some other force or being is using the radio to get a message across to people. So I've heard of that before. And I've even covered that in a couple of my experiences shows, my True Paranormal Stories on the Web shows, as they used to be called. And so, yeah, I think that's again, it's the TV show is more extreme version of that. And it goes a lot further than maybe a lot of people's experiences do in this time. But then again, if time travel isn't exactly what we think it is, which I don't think we really know what it is, then would we even know if two people somehow did go back in time? Because again, like I mentioned in the last of these episodes, how do we know that people, when there's time travel, it's actually going back to a point in the same universe? It may be going to a point in a different universe, which is why it's able to happen in the first place. Again, I have no idea. I'm not saying I do, but amazing ideas there to consider, I think. So, yeah, we may need to do a show on electronics and all the weird ways that they seem to be influenced by other consciousness, other forces. That might be a good show to do on a Saturday with Jen, the Arcane Observer. I might have to recommend that or suggest that and see what we can come up with for that, because it does seem to be happening. Again, just based on all the stories I found of experiences. So, let me get to the next episode here. Let's review. And that would be, let's see here. This is episode 21 of season 2. And it is called, let me see here, The Prime Mover. And so this story is the show is about a man who his name is Jim Cobb. He's able to basically think of things and make them happen, but he's been keeping it hidden for a long time. So, and he has a friend, Ace Larson, who finds that his business partner, Jim Cobb, has abilities, telekinetic abilities. After there's a car that has an accident outside their cafe, and Jim moves the car without touching it. And again, I believe it's to save someone that is trapped in the accident. And after Ace realizes this, and Jim didn't really want to do this, but again, to save someone's life, he did. Ace decides, because Ace is a gambler, he tries to convince Jim to use his powers to win big in Las Vegas, to gamble basically, and then influence the outcome of any game that he plays. So he takes his girlfriend Kitty with them, and so they start gambling, and of course Jim is influencing every bet and making sure that Ace wins. And but Jim warns Ace or mentions to Ace that every time he does this, every time he makes objects move with his mind, or basically his mind, he gets headaches from doing this. And he's also doesn't like the idea of basically cheating. And then also doesn't like the idea of getting caught by the casinos. So, but Jim keeps telling him that if they win enough money, then they'll be set for life. And Kitty, meanwhile, is watching all this, and somehow figures out or has a suspicion of what Ace is doing, and leaves. So Ace hires the casinos, one of the casino's workers, to stay with him, and just for company, basically. And they he has the manager of this casino call a major notorious gangster from Chicago to have a private game of craps. And Ace continues his winning streak because of Jim. And this big-time gangster is not happy. And Jim is also not happy because his headache is getting worse and worse, and he's trying to tell Ace that he doesn't think they should push it anymore. And so Ace decides to bet all of the money that they've accumulated on this next roll. And of course, at this point, Jim is not able to manipulate the results, and Ace loses everything. And Ace realizes that he's just been taking advantage of his friend at this point after all that. Took him almost a whole episode. And he and Jim go back home and to meet Kitty. And so Ace realizes that, of course, with all this, that money isn't everything and it can come and go very easily. And so he's been thinking about his girlfriend this whole time, Kitty, and he asks her to marry him, just as Jim drops his broom. And she says that she'll marry Ace if he wins a coin toss. And he's able to do it without Jim manipulating anything. Because, of course, at this point, Jim feels like he's all tapped out of this amazing energy or ability to manipulate the world around him with his mind. And so Kitty accepts the proposal, and Jim picks up the broom with his mind. And turns out he had faked the loss of his power to teach Ace sort of a lesson in a way, and to snap him out of his obsession with money. So, and the show ends basically right there. Again, this goes back to what I was just talking about, and I'm not sure here if it was this episode or the last, but this idea of people that have powers, or that develop powers, and all this. Let me see here. I think it was the last episode. Because, okay, yep, I got it straight now. So it was the last of these episodes I did, where I was talking about people that have powers and where they come from. But also, the amazing thing with this is, if you look at throughout time, people have claimed abilities to levitate, either themselves or other objects. There's, of course, all kinds of accounts of what is known as poltergeists in homes, where it's either some other being or it's the natural energy of the people that are living there that somehow manipulates objects in their surroundings. So it's really a neat episode, and I really enjoyed the outcome of it, because it's sort of the show suggests that Jim faked the loss of his abilities, but also I would imagine if you use something like that enough, you could lose that ability for a while. And so yeah, it's I've heard about that too. Ricky in the chat was saying he was watching a video about people who have autism that have telepathic abilities. But yeah, so I think that's throughout time. I mean, I think Jen has mentioned this before on other shows, reports of people who were major religious figures in different religions around the world, in particular like saints and just other figures in Christian or Catholic, those sort of organizations of the world, that have also seemed to have abilities or to be affected by forces that would make it look like they had abilities. It's hard to know for sure, I think, at times. But yeah, so, and I wonder too, when it comes to that, if these things can, because I've heard about people being able to affect electronics around them. And of course, the whole streetlight interference phenomenon, and people that whatever technology they get close to, if they're really feeling going through a really emotional state, if there's a lot of energy or a lot going on with their personal life, they will completely shut down electronic devices, computers and things like that, to where they won't work. And it takes, from what I've heard on all different kinds of shows I've listened to over the years, it can take years of sort of learning how to stay grounded, to not let your emotions sort of get out of control, or at least to manage them in different ways so that that energy does not get out. People have learned how to keep that sort of mostly under control so that they can still use. And I mean, I can't imagine how rough that would be to be able to use electronics, and if you couldn't use them all the time. So much of what we do now is just wrapped up in that, in some kind of devices, whether it's phones or watches or computers, or I mean, even cash registers. Most of them now, they're a machine. They're electronic in some way. So, so yeah, it was a good show, and definitely recommend all these shows. So yeah, it's I think we've talked about that in the show before, the manipulation of objects by people and by other beings. And of course, this has been used so much in fiction outside of the Twilight Zone. I mean, like there was one of a Trouble Mind show recently about telepathy and telekinesis and all those things, and how that's just been used. I brought up in that show. There are whole classes of characters in fiction, in Marvel, and I imagine DC Comics as well, where they have powers that come from their mind. And all these characters can do different things, or their powers manifest in different ways. But they're all still based or centered around some kind of energy along with thought and consciousness. And so it always amazes me how there's these parallels and connections and with fiction throughout time, as well as reports of actual things that may have happened to people, and people that may have had abilities like these. So, but so yeah, that's basically it for this episode. Please, whenever you look at these episodes and you check out the episode description, check out all the links there for the friends of the show that happen to be on any given show. I always have a link to, again, Jen, the Arcane Observer, to her link tree, as well as to Michael Strange's website for Trouble Minds Radio. And you can hear all of our shows, everyone that's on the network there, on the Trouble Minds Radio Network, KUAP, Digital Broadcasting. You can listen to shows from this group of people that I'm part of, lucky to be part of, 24/7 over there. So I like to mention that whenever there's time, and I need to fill in some time at the end of a show. So thank you all for being here and listening. And I will talk to you all next time on Salsido Paranormal. Take care.